Cool. So awesome. Then we can get started, I would say. How are you all feeling today? I hope you're great. You had some great sessions already, and we welcome you to our little talk.
Yes, welcome. So, I am Anika Nicolaas.
And I'm Bernd Riedel.
Yes, and we're going to talk to you about the importance of innovative communication formats and even gamification to get as many people possible on board for climate equality, Freudian slip, gender equality, and ultimately a fair feminist future. So the reason why I said climate is because that is the environment that I work at. I work at IKEM, that's the Institute for Climate Protection, Energy and Mobility. That's the team over there. We started out in 2010 with only 3 people, and now there's about 60 of us. And we aim to accelerate and achieve the global energy transition to reach our climate targets on time. And time's of the essence because we only have about 8 years to completely turn things around if we want to stick to the 1.5 degree target of the Paris Agreement. So yes, it's a very big challenge, the system transformation, and that's why I can take an interdisciplinary approach. They have these expert teams specialized in tackling transition challenges, like focusing on energy efficiency or finance or mobility or the legal sector, or of course, the field of sustainability and innovation, and that is my team. This is the group of wonderful international thinkers and doers that I'm leading, and we aim to make sure that everybody gets on board in the energy transition, and also that the decentralization of power, quite literally, will yield societal benefits and participation opportunities. So we work on things like just transition in coal regions, citizen engagement, and of course, gender equality in the energy transition, because these things are closely interlinked.
And then there's Ellery Studio. That's where I'm from. We're a strategy and design agency based in Berlin, working predominantly in stability and in. And we have a long-standing partnership history with Anika's institute already. We published some fun, innovative communication formats like the infographic energy transition coloring book, or we also did a solar punk festival, bringing together artists and scientists to explore desirable, sustainable futures. And that's us, almost as cute as the IKEM team.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to compete with the designers. They're, of course, much better at this than the researchers. But yeah, what's on the menu today? We wanted to talk about the global context of gender equality, the impact of climate change on women, employment in the renewable energy sector, the eco-gender gap, and leadership in climate movements, just to set the scene. And then we're going to narrow the scope to our workplace and the light bulb moment that we had to develop a toolkit to address gender inequality. So we'll talk about how we made that toolkit, what kind of creative process was behind it, and then, of course, what lessons did we learn along the way. So let's dive in with the global context. Sustainability is very much intertwined with gender equality. Let's look at climate change specifically. The effects of climate change have disproportionately impacted women. Inequalities are amplified by climate events. They result in higher workloads for women, occupational hazards, psychological, emotional stress, higher mortality compared to men. And that's all because women are more likely to live in poverty than men. They have less access to basic human rights like owning land or freely move around. And of course, also they face systemic violence that escalates during periods of instability, which of course is something that increases with climate change. So this is very much a crisis that affects women worldwide. Now, let's narrow our scope a little bit more and look at how things are going in the renewable energy sector, which is our biggest tool to drive down emissions and fight climate change. So overall, the share of renewables in the global energy mix has been increasing steadily. That's really good news, even throughout COVID-19. Solar is a particularly big player here, major cost reductions and a lot of off-grid communities that have been electrified with this decentralized energy source. So how are women doing in this renewable energy sector? Now, these are 3 little bar charts. On the left, you see the global workforce around the world, of which women make up about 48%. In the middle, you see the workforce in the renewable energy sector, of which women make up only about 33%. So 1/3 of workers in renewables are women. So not an equal representation yet. Now, if we look further on the right, you see that the share of women in the workforce in the traditional energy sector is only at 22%. So women are much more represented, are more seen in the renewable energy sector than they are in the traditional one of coal, oil, and gas, with coal being the worst performing in terms of gender equality. So this is like a trend towards renewables that should be reinforced and facilitated so that this transition Also, it entails a transition to more gender equality, something to capitalize on. Now, while renewable energy is really important in addressing climate change, consumer behavior is also very important. What we eat, what we buy, what we wear can have a major impact on emissions. And in this consumer behavior, researchers found what they called the eco-gender gap, which is the fact that women tend to show more climate-friendly consumption behavior than men. They are more likely to buy organic and healthy groceries, live a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, choose more eco-friendly cars, then drive them less often and drive them less fast, and even consume less energy overall, thereby having a lower carbon footprint than men. So research have been kind of study at Penn State in 2019 that found that men are disinclined to carry a reusable shopping bag or recycle or really any environmentally friendly activity, often because they associate those things with being girly or feminine. So they were scared to be perceived as gay or effeminate, like this very insecure dude here in this GIF, who apparently cannot hold a lady's purse. I don't know, his hands will melt. So this shows also the intersectionality of issues like toxic masculinity and insecurity with the topics of sustainability and climate. So this fragility that we're building into our gender roles today is clearly, well, not sustainable, to say the least. Another relevant trend that I very much like is women's representation and leadership in today's climate debate. Major voices can often be traced back to women. Think of Greta Thunberg or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Both are women and they're young and they've inspired millions of people to join the climate movement with the demand for action and for change. So this female leadership of theirs is really challenging the status quo, and it stands in stark contrast with the older generation, which is usually older white men who push against this, which thanks to existing power structures they helped and maintain. So there's clearly a lot of overlap between these gender equality and sustainability topics. But the good news is that there's also a lot of really good things being done in this field. There's great organizations and bottom-up initiatives that link gender and sustainability and try to synergize things. And that brings me to the context of our workplace. At IKEM, where I work, we believe in gender equality and the intersection with sustainability. I love this GIF. So over half of IKEMers are women. And that's really good news. Also among leadership positions, we all try to put our money where our mouth is. And of course, the occasional mansplaining is hard to avoid, but overall, as IKEMers navigate, I would say it's not perfect, but it's a fairly feminist and fairly kind of woke bubble. Of course, sometimes we have to leave our comfortable bubble, our shire, and venture outside into the real world to attend conferences and to meet clients. And since we work in the energy sector, which can be conservative, as we've seen, we often find ourselves in male-dominated spaces. And it feels like a very long time ago, 2018. It was in one such space that my team was particularly under fire from microaggressions, biased behavior, and simple sexism. It was a conference like any other, and my mostly female team, consisting of lawyers, engineers, and managers, was there to present a multi-million-euro offshore wind project that we were leading. So soon after we got there, though, bias and sexism started. Of all the speakers, there were no women included. During lunch, my colleague, who's a lawyer, walked by a full table, and this one guy asked her if she could stop and clear the plates because the table was getting a little bit full. Because for him, she was so out of place there that her presence could only really be explained by her being a waitress. In the afternoon, as I was about to go to the stage to open our side event, I was interrupted by a guy asking me to get him a notebook and a pen, because he assumed that I was supporting staff and not the project manager. When we talked to the organizers about maybe having more female speakers in the lineup, they said, oh yeah, we tried, but we just couldn't find any qualified women, which is a very lazy excuse that you probably are familiar with. So we were talking about this with each other as colleagues, complaining about it because it's a very unpleasant situation. And someone leaned in to say, oh, come on, guys, don't be so sensitive. And another person chimed in to ask, oh, God, you're not one of those angry feminists, right? So, you know, not necessarily the most fruitful environment. And we left feeling very shaken, a little bit taken aback, and a little embarrassed that this was even happening. It can be really hard to find the right response in that moment that something like this is happening. A response that corrects the offending party, that might even make them reflect, And it also makes you feel empowered and not overlooked or diminished, which is so often the case. So on the train, on the way back home, we started to brainstorm. This was not an isolated incident. This behavior is not innocent. It reflects a deep-seated bias against women, resulting in people underestimating their capacities, their place in the workplace, but also, the responsibilities that women are given and the pay that they get as compensation. So we really need to call this behavior out. But how do you do that? It's a heavy, complex topic. It's a professional context, so you can't just flip someone off like you do in a bar, maybe. So how do you walk away feeling good about yourself? We realized that the right responses to sexist situations can actually be practiced a lot beforehand. Likewise, convincing arguments and statistics that educate offenders and also put them in their place can also be researched and collected a little bit beforehand, some kind of like guideline or practice manual. Not every woman has to go through this process alone and find those answers by herself. By pooling experiences and researching solutions, we can really help each other to be better prepared. But what format should this product take? And for this, we knew that we have to turn to our creative partner in crime, Ellery Studio, who of course has helped us translate many complex issues into the playful tools that we see today.
Yeah, and there it was, the spark for our collaborative endeavor. We called it EQT, the Gender Equality Toolkit for Women and Friends. And we approached this topic to assemble a few things that we thought might be insightful, might be helpful in thinking through like how you want to engage with this problem, with this challenge. So it consists, the toolkit consists of an infographic poster, a card game, and an informative booklet with facts, figures, and arguments. So maybe let's just look into it right away. First off, all the subject matter in our two teams to get things going, and we explored kind of what kind of opportunities we had to engage with this challenge, and we formulated our goals. We wanted to create a product that would promote change to improve gender equality, with a focus on the workplace, while also representing the experiences of a wide range of women, to facilitate dialogue among a wide variety of people. Something that could be played in a range of settings and would be educational and fun. So the main challenge was set as, how can we quickly identify gender inequality or sexism in the workplace and respond productively? And that's exactly what the toolkit is supposed to do. It gives you well-researched facts and figures for convincing discussions around gender inequality, building arguments so that you don't have to by yourself in the moment. And to keep things fun and engaging, this heavy content is packaged in a light-hearted illustrations and infographic way. So we did our homework in the beginning and figured, let's look at what was the story up to here, and created an infographic poster out of it. The history of feminism, highlighting some key players in this massive endeavor of getting a more equal society. And it's completely packed with information, statistical, fundamental data to provide anyone who reads it with a little bit of background knowledge to throw out facts and figures. And then we interviewed a lot of cool lady bosses about their experiences and collected anecdotes to get an overview of what are we dealing with. And a common theme in most interviews was the following. We all know that feeling of thinking of what you should have said, what your comeback should have been an hour after the moment has passed. And these moments are and situations are really frustrating and uncomfortable, and they make it worse. Addressing these can be really hard. You'll find that there are people who will dismiss you and deny what you're saying. They gaslight you and they get defensive. that can make it difficult to engage, especially in public. And you want to get your arguments in line to convince and educate. And then it hit us. We knew specialists who navigate these challenges with ease. It's drag performers. My team had the incredible privilege, just before we started that project, to have a drag queen boot camp for our whole team under supervision of Fanny and Viagra Falls of the Real Housewives of Neukölln. And it was in Mallorca, so it was a fantastic event. And shout out to them. They are our drag mothers. And they taught us about boldness and confidence, about reading and throwing shade, lots of transferable skills you need to prevail in business and in the workplace. So we got to work based on that. We concluded that the best way to confront sexism is to start at a person-to-person level through role play. And because our goal was to highlight real workplace situations in our game, we identified even more women who could tell us about their experiences. We collected scenarios and then described and developed prototypes for two kinds of cards, situations and reactions. We created drafts of some situations and used comic-style drawings to illustrate them. And then we met as a group to test drive our new game. After that, it was only a matter of rinse and repeat and doing it until it makes sense. Oh, see, I have a few pictures here. Yeah, you see like lots of workshop environment, lots of co-creation, lots of user testing. That was the development. And as you can see, it's not yet a digital tool. It's a physical game because we very heavily rely on the personal exchange of knowledge. And then we got the final product, a card. Colleagues, workshop trainings on friends. So what's in the game? It includes 50 situation cards, real life experiences, all backed up. 50 reaction cards from a similar setting, like what were real reactions and how did they play out. And in the end, we also have 2 jokers for like reacting in a way that you think is the best way. Because all of these are supposed to be conversation starters. So each situation card describes a sexist workplace scenario. The situations included capture a wide spectrum of problematic behavior, from illegal discrimination to belittling comments that may not be illegal, but still create an uncomfortable workplace environment. So this is how it works. First, you have the roles that you can take. You're the instigator, the sexist person, or you are the responder. And the interesting part will be that taking between 5 players, up to 5 players, you take turns. Each person can take a sexist role, and you read out the situation in a way that you describe the environment, what's happening, and then you have a lot of reaction cards, each person, and you have to decide, taking turns, how you react to this specific situation. And just as in real life, you're kind of limited. You might not be able to react in the way you want to. You have to pick what life handed you, and then even if it might not be the perfect one, and then start discussing how you would actually play it out, how you would try to push it further. So yes, each player takes turns, then each responder lays their card. The instigator then chooses the most effective reaction from their point of view and gives the card to the responder. And the player with the most cards after 5 rounds wins. And just to give you an overview, because many of the situations will feel familiar for many of you, here's a few examples of the situations cards. Like, we've all been to places where there, for example, is like weird sexist kind of posters or content hanging around, like a nude calendar or anything. Or here's another one. you start a job and you get patronized. There's a person calling you honey or darling. And as a few examples to the reaction cards, it covers a full spectrum of like, you try to educate, and then of course you play it out in the game. Like, how would you do that? Do you have the numbers? Or you react in a more passive way. You might be really confrontative, or you will put down the facts and drop the mic.
Yes. So a lot of content, a really cool card game. As an FYI, the card game refers to a handbook in which there's lots of like information about gender inequality, all the statistics, and of course infographics you might want. I see we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to be quick for the last little bit. Yes, here. So first, we learned while we were making this toolkit, while we were sharing with each other, that one of the most important things that you can do when faced with inequality or injustice is to share your story and find your allies. You'll be surprised how many people share your experiences and how comforting it is and how much power you can find in that. You'll also be surprised by how many people simply did not know the gravity of the situation. A lot of the men that we shared these stories with, just regular dudes working in the energy sector, simply did not know how bad it was and how frequently this happens. They were really shocked and surprised. Of course, like on a certain level, yeah, they could have known already, because it's not completely mystery that there is gender inequality in workspaces, because they're never at the receiving end of this kind of behavior. Just how far it went was still quite shocking to them. And by engaging with these people, we moved many stakeholders from passive bystander to active ally, and we need allies to move gender equality forward. We also learned that many people, well-meaning people otherwise, shy away from words like sexism and even feminism. Ooh, sexism sounds so harsh, and surely what just happened is more innocent than that. And ooh, feminism, it's so activist and anti-men, and all I want is equality. And we found that simply explaining what these words mean, what helpful creates awareness, teaching the right vocabulary helped people to identify and frame biased behavior, and it gave them more confidence to speak up against it. So there was also like a lot of demystifying to do around that, especially around the topic of feminism, explaining that it's simply about equality, which really almost everybody stands for today. You get more people to embrace it by explaining it. Heck, even Angie joined the gang last week. She did not do that like 5 years ago. So to keep moving forward together towards more gender equality, bottom-up initiatives driven by people like EQT, for instance, will remain very important to get more people on board in this like bottom-up sort of level. But also at the same time, I think top-down initiatives must do their part as well, because this is a major challenge. And policymakers, corporate leaders, managers, they all have to be more ambitious and integrate gender equality in policy, in hiring and workplace environments design to create safe spaces where everyone can deploy their talents. So yeah, in conclusion, it's been well documented that a diverse workforce with women in leadership positions taps into the power of diverse perspectives and innovative decision-making. And this improves overall performance, nice corporate argument, but most importantly, it creates equality and fairness, and it unlocks the human brain power that we need to tackle the climate crisis. So feminism very much intersects with the sustainability challenges of our time. And I think that if we play our cards right, we can build a better and more sustainable world for everyone together.
Yes, and we learned that drag performers can have very major insights into how to conduct business and how to be witty when it comes to like reacting in the workplace to gender inequality.
Yes.
So thank you very much. We're at the end of our talk and can take some questions now. Just if you wonder, it's a live game. It's meant to be played with people. So you can imagine that most of the development happened just before COVID. In fact, we went into production just when the lockdowns hit. So everything was put on hold for the last 1.5 years, sadly. And just now with the light at the end of the tunnel of this whole devastating pandemic, we're starting to get back on the horse and will probably very soon go into rollout. But one thing already exists, and you can check it out at myenergytransition.com. It's the poster that we showed you. You can already buy that there next to all the other weird things that we did with Anika's institute together. Some cute sustainability learning publications. But you can check it out, and otherwise we will be very outspoken of when the thing comes out.
Yes, thank you for joining. I look forward to your questions.